Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so we've heard the noise, right? JD Vance gets selected as vice presidential running mate alongside former President Donald Trump, and the full-on slanderous hit campaign immediately mobilizes. Destroy JD Vance at any and all cost, essentially, was the mission at hand. They absolutely thrashed him in the media, and it certainly had an effect, and they were declaring victory, essentially taunting in your face that they had destroyed Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate.
I mean, it's the worst vice presidential pick of my lifetime, and
the addition of J.D. Vance to this ticket, it's incredibly bad choice.
I mean, J.D. Vance is a disastrous pick.
Mark my words, this is the worst vice presidential pick probably since 1972 when George McGovern chose Thomas Eagleton as his VP pick.
The worst vice presidential pick in history, they say. And pretty much that was on like the first week of the actual general election, considering everything started back at square one the moment Kamala Harris was announced. They declared J.D. Vance's political campaign dead. But as per usual, of course, the Democrats, I think, might have taken a little bit of an early victory lap. They tried to make the narrative true before it actually was true. And now, well, I guess reality's starting to set in. Against it all, J.D. Vance is fighting for a political comeback here, and frankly, I think he might just be doing it. And I think with the backdrop of the Tim Walz contrast, it's shaping up for a nice little optics win. Let's have a conversation about that. Let's call it the J.D. Vance triumphant return. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so they tried destroying JD, but see, as per usual, this little Democrat endeavor was mostly partisan and not based on facts. They just declared JD Vance trash, but JD Vance is far from it. You know, when we say that Joe Biden is trash, there's certainly a partisan element to it, but for the most part, it's because it's true.
It's an impact that decades in making, because inaction was there was inaction with the Department of
When we say Kamala Harris is trash, again, it's because it's true.
When we talk about the children of the community, they are children of the community.
We got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously.
But when Democrats say it, they say it just to say it, just to be mean or something, I don't know. The reality is now they have to contend with J.D. Vance, they have to actually engage with him and debate with him, and he's freaking schooling them.
Well, John, we have to start with the fact that we have a wide open southern border because our border czar actually set a lot of open border policies. They suspended...
she's not actually, she wasn't the border czar.
Oh, that was what the media called her. She assumed the title. She had control over a lot of our border policy at a time when they were suspending... Let me finish, John. The time they were suspending deportations, they stopped Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, and they reinstituted catch and release. They basically threw open the gates of our country, and now we have a ton of fentanyl, a ton of people suffering.
But how are you going to get 10 to 15 to 20 million people out of the country?
Well, the first thing you have to do is to stop the bleeding, stop the open border, get Kamala Harris out of there, and actually re-implement the Remain in Mexico policy, rebuild or finish Donald Trump's border wall, and you do that and you stop the bleeding. Now, you're right. Once you do that, once you stop Kamala Harris's open border policies, you've got to do something with the people who are already here. And I think that you take a sequential approach to it. You are going to have to deport some people. If you're not willing to deport a lot of people, you're not willing to have a border when there are 20 million illegal aliens in our country.
10 to 15 million people, this is like, I mean...
Well, John, I think it's the wrong attitude to take of it. Okay,
so you go knock on doors and ask people for their papers.
Again, but
what do you do?
Let me finish. I think this is the wrong attitude towards it, right? There's 20 million people here illegally. You start with what's achievable. You do that. And then you go on to what's achievable from there. I think that if you deport a lot of violent criminals, and frankly, if you make it harder to hire illegal labor, which undercuts the wages of American workers, I think you go a lot of the way to solving the illegal immigration problem. But look, President Trump is absolutely right. You cannot have a border unless you're willing to deport some people. I think it's interesting that people focus on, well, how do you deport 18 million people? Let's start with 1 million. That's where Kamala Harris has failed, and then we can go from there.
He is exposing Kamala Harris. These in-the-moment fake news fact checks might stump some people. Some people might shy away, cower away, or really just not possess the quick-witted talents in nature to be able to adequately respond. But J.D. Vance, well, he ain't that guy. And he completely schooled ABC. What a ridiculous little fact check. Actually, Kamala Harris wasn't the border czar. Of course she was. Don't treat us like we're stupid. She was in charge of the southern border. She was the one doing the press press conferences. She was the one who had her trip to the Northern Triangle, where she met with the president of Guatemala and then completely ghosted him and never called him ever again. In fact, even refusing to take his phone calls.
Other than your meeting with Kamala Harris in June.
That's the only one.
That is the only communication you've had with the Biden administration about illegal immigration?
Yep.
She was the border czar, and she was labeled the border czar by you frickin' media idiots. JD Vance absolutely cooked this guy. So again, it's like a leftist media manufactured narrative versus reality. JD Vance sucks. He's gonna single-handedly tank the Trump campaign. He can't handle Tim Walz. Give me a break. JD Vance can handle himself, and he can also speak for himself rather than having you media clowns speak for him. And that's another thing that JD Vance continues to clarify. Democrats want to continue to dishonestly and partisanly hone in on his single cat lady comment while omitting the actual meta point at large, and certainly that worked for a momentary little, fake outrage blip, but over time, JD Vance is getting the opportunity and the platform to express himself where he stands and what he means, and it's coming off great.
Well, it's called the child tax credit, and we should expand the child tax credit. If you think about what the child tax credit does...
So you and the Biden administration agree on the child care tax credit?
Well, we think it should be bigger. I think President Trump and I believe in an expanded child tax credit, but we also importantly want to actually get this thing done. The child tax credit has languished thanks to the Biden administration because Harris has failed to show fundamental leadership.
Basically, what you want to do to expand the child care tax credit, because it's like $2,000 per kid right now.
Well, I think one of the things you can do is make it bigger per child. I think we'd love to see it at a higher dollar value. And again, President Trump and I have proposed that. I mean, look, I'd love to see a child tax credit that's $5,000 per child, but you, of course, have to work with Congress to see how possible and viable that is. We've also proposed legislation, Margaret, to end this practice of parents getting these surprise medical bills where they go to the hospital, they have a baby, they chose an out-of-network provider, and they come home with unexpected bills. I've actually sponsored legislation to end that practice.
Well, isn't that interesting? JD Vance was languished in the media for his cat lady's comment, but it turns out that what he actually meant was that he supports a child tax credit, in fact, a bigger child tax credit than the one implemented by the Biden administration. So this thing that he was demonized for actually is quite similar to what Democrats openly and currently support. Let the man frickin' cook. Again, it's reality versus Democrat narrative. Democrats want to tell you or convince you that the Republicans are extreme and scary and you need to vote for them because they're friends with celebrities or something. But the reality is that Republicans aren't these scary demons, these scary monsters. They're just people with slightly different ideas on how a society should be governed. And so the question is, how long are the Democrats going to be able to keep this mirage up that they're just the good guys because? I don't know, especially as we really delve into substance here. Eventually, Democrats are going to have to start making public appearances. They're going to have to start doing what JD's doing here, actually addressing the public, and most importantly, debating. I mean, they've obviously got a whole lot to answer for. Kamala's going to have to defend her track record on the southern border because the Trump administration will not relent. And of course, their accurate labeling of Kamala Harris as the border czar, and might I add, the current border czar, keeps promising that she's going to fix the southern border issue. She's literally the vice president in charge of the southern border issue. I mean, just do something or at least try. I think once again, JD Vance hit the nail on the head with this one.
I believe that Kamala Harris is whatever she says she is, but I believe importantly that President Trump is right that she's a chameleon. She pretends to be one thing in front of one audience. She pretends to be something different in front of another audience. Look, Dana, she's not running a political campaign. She's running a movie. She only speaks to voters behind a teleprompter. Everything is scripted. She doesn't have her policy positions out there. She hasn't answered why she wanted to ban fracking, but now she doesn't. She wanted to fund police, but now she doesn't. She wanted to open the border, but now she doesn't. She should have to answer for why she presents a different set of policies to one audience and a different set of policies to another audience. And I think that's what President Trump is getting at. This is a fundamentally fake person. She's different depending on who she's in front of.
They attacked JD Vance. They tried to destroy him, but he took on all the heat and he continues to take on all the heat. He's taking it on, and most importantly, he's addressing it all head on. And that's quite admirable. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris continues to run, play games. She continues to run on her Hollywood campaign. Let's see how long it lasts. This election is real versus fake, and if real is the desired product here, well then I'd argue that JD Vance and Trump are winning by a mile. I think JD's doing an admirable job, considering all the vicious attacks. And so like usual, as I end a lot of these videos, I guess we'll just have to keep monitoring the situation and wait and see exactly what happens here. Are Trump and JD making an effective appeal to the nation? And what's the Harris-Waltz response going to be? I guess we'll have to see. I'll keep you guys updated on all of it. That's what I got for you guys on this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.